Hi, Dave Jones here again. We're going to continue with the technical development side of things with this lesson. I've got this up under the technique section of the website. It's called Slurring Technique Development or something. There's three of them, but I hope I've done it so you can gradually get up there. And if you've been following the exercises, some of them are a little bit the same. There's a string skipping idea, but we're going to be doing it with the fretting hand more this time rather than the picking hand. I always think it's better to work on the hands separately with certain exercises. So the idea is I'm going to use the good old minor pentatonic scale. I'm going to include that note in it. It's going into the third octave, but it helps with the exercise. So the first thing we're going to do is it's called slurring, hammer-ons and pull-offs. If you've been following some of the earlier lessons, you should have already done some of this, but if you haven't, I'll sort of briefly explain it to you. What we're going to do is we're going to pluck this string, the 6th E string, thick one, and while it's still ringing, rapidly hammer on our little finger to the 8th fret, and then 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8. So slowly across the scale. And then exactly the reverse on the way down. So what we're going to do now is when you're pulling off to a fretted note, you have to have both of your fingers on the same string at the right fret. So I've got I've got my first finger on the high E string at the 5th fret, and I've got my little finger on the high E string at the 8th fret. Pluck the note and pull it downwards. It's like plucking with your left hand. Pull off is probably not the best. It's called a pull off, but it's probably not the best term. It's more like a pluck off. You're plucking with your whatever finger you're pulling off. But you must, when you're working this, I think I did do an exercise with this in a G major pentatonic scale, an open scale. But when you're doing it with a fretted note, you must have both fingers on the same string. So we come back down the scale the opposite way. The other thing to make sure is when you do pull off, that this finger pulls down, but this finger, your first finger in this case, remains tight on the string. It doesn't go with it, because then you'll be pulling off to an out of tune note. So this is the technical exercise is to hammer on up the scale. And you do that until you feel comfortable with it, and you can do it without any accidents or mishaps or unclear notes. The next thing is to move on to, because it's developing the technique between the two hands. So the next thing is to move on to string skipping. Now there was, if you're following the technical exercises, there was a string skipping exercise with picking the minor pentatonic scale. This time we're going to do it with slurring, hammer-ons and pull-offs. So we're going to hammer on like we did last time, but this time instead of going to the A string next, we're going to go to the D string, and then we're going to go back to the A string, and then jump the D string and go to the G string, and then we're going to go back to the D string, and then jump the G string and go to the B string, back to the G string, onto the high E string, and then the same thing on the way down. We'll pull off on the high E string, miss the B, do the G, back to the B, miss the G, do the D, back to the G, back onto the A now, back to the D, and then onto the E string. So if you're doing that slowly, and then back down. And then what you do then is just, again, accurate, clear, even, developing the coordination between the two hands. And then the last exercise that I did in those set of 3, I think there's one on each page, but it's the same sort of idea, so I'll carry it on in this video. This is a much more bordering on the little licks that you might use. You wouldn't want to use the whole thing perhaps, but the little licks that you can start to put in your soloing. What we're going to do now is we're going to hammer on across 3 strings and then come back 1, and then back 1, and then the opposite on the way down. So that exercise there is much more in keeping. The last one was much more in keeping with playing an actual sort of. You get licks like that in solos, not probably all the way across the scale, although you might do in some of the faster sort of shred type rock playing. But so I hope you find those useful. They will really, I keep stressing this, but they really will, with methodical, slow, in time practice, they really will improve the coordination between your left and the right hand, which is a really important thing on the guitar, because you don't want, as I think I said in one of the other exercises, you don't want two really fast hands that don't actually work with each other. So you need to do it slow, methodical, and the metronome, like I've said before, is a very useful tool, and it's also very motivational. I think I said that before, because you've actually got a set number that you can do your exercises at, and then a week later you'll find that if you do them properly, you'll find that you can do them faster than that. So you can think, oh, I did them at 80 beats a minute last week, I can do them at 90 beats a minute this week, so therefore I must have improved, because otherwise you don't really notice your improvement, because you hear yourself play every day. So I hope you find that useful, and do let me know, and I'll see you again sometime. Cheers.